Cashin was in the middle of his morning routine, sipping strong black coffee and reading the sports section of the newspaper, when Isadora's voice suddenly broke the quiet in the kitchen. Without warning, she sat down across from him. Her eyes were dark and unreadable. "Cashin," she said, her voice sharp and cold. "Put the paper down. We need to talk." He paused for just a moment, then folded the paper and set it aside. He expected a small complaint or maybe a minor issue. But her next words hit like a lightning bolt. "I'm leaving you. I want a divorce." The room felt like it had shrunk. His mind raced. For a long moment, there was only silence, a heavy, tense silence, as if a storm had just rolled in. Cashin's shock didn't show. On the outside, he looked calm, his eyes narrowing slightly. But inside, he was full of hurt and confusion. Still, his face stayed blank, a mask he had worn many times. "Is that it?" he asked quietly, his voice full of disbelief and a hint of bitter amusement. Isadora's gaze flickered. Was it sadness? Or final, stubborn resolve? "Yes, Cashin. I'm done. You've been distracted for a long time now. I can't do this anymore." Cashin leaned back, letting her words sink in. A storm of thoughts and emotions swirled beneath his calm surface. As he looked into her steady eyes, he realized this moment would change everything. The promises, the memories, all of it. And in that silence, something dark began to grow inside him. Revenge, cold and calculated. Nothing would be the same again. Cashin stood in the doorway of his private study, still shaken by Isadora's announcement. Morning light came through the blinds, casting sharp lines across the polished mahogany desk. He walked slowly into the room, each step thoughtful, like he was navigating a maze of plans. Once inside, he shut the door behind him and picked up a clean notepad and a sleek pen, a gift from a trusted mentor. His hands looked steady, but inside, they trembled with cold anger and eerie calm. The blank page in front of him felt like a stage. He was ready to begin. With slow, careful handwriting, he began, "Dear Lysander Wolfe, thank you, and thank God that Isadora is finally out of my life." He paused, eyes narrowing as he remembered the lottery ticket he'd bought the night before. It was a small thing, almost forgotten, a hopeful little gesture. He reached into his wallet and pulled it out, then slid the ticket under the final line of the letter. Perhaps, if fortune smiles on you, the winnings might be enough to feed the endless hunger of a woman who's destroyed trust beyond repair. Good luck. Cashin. His voice was low as he read it out loud, every word sharp with purpose. There was a dark humor in the letter, a bitter joke that only made him more determined. As he sealed the envelope, he muttered, "This is for every broken promise, every wasted moment." The envelope, now carrying both bitterness and a sliver of hope, was addressed to Lysander Wolfe. Cashin's eyes glinted as he handed it to Isadora, his tone cold and final. "Isadora," he said, voice like ice, "make sure this gets to him. I don't trust you not to interfere." Isadora's face twisted with shock and defiance. "You think I'm that gullible?" she snapped, clutching the envelope tightly. But Cashin was already regaining control, his voice firm and final. "Pack your things, Isadora," he said, his words echoing in the quiet kitchen where their truth had just shattered the morning. "You're leaving, and I won't let your betrayal cost me any more than it already has." Outside, the world carried on with its usual rhythm. But inside Cashin's carefully maintained sanctuary, every detail, from the crisp paper to the glint of the lottery ticket, spoke of a man who had turned heartbreak into a plan for revenge. After sealing the envelope, Cashin sank into the leather chair at his desk. The soft click of the door behind him marked the end of one chapter and the start of another. The weight of his decision hung over him like a heavy cloak, but in his eyes there was a cold determination. With a slow exhale, he picked up his phone and dialed a familiar number, Quentin Drake, a childhood friend, now a respected family lawyer. "Quentin, it's Cashin," he said, his voice calm but deliberate. "I need your help. Isadora's actions today have left me no choice. I'm filing for divorce, and I want a restraining order. She needs to stay away." On the other end, Quentin's voice was steady, though touched with concern. "Cashin, I'm sorry you're going through this. I know how painful it must be. But if she's set on causing chaos, you need to act quickly. I'll be in my office first thing tomorrow. We'll go over the details and start the paperwork. Cashin's voice was firm, almost cold. Thanks, Quentin. I'm ready to do whatever it takes. Tell me what I need to prepare. In the quiet of the study, Quentin outlined the next steps. Gather all financial records, secure details of joint accounts, list every shared asset. Cashin listened carefully, mentally logging each instruction. Every transaction, every item. They were all now pieces of a partnership breaking apart. He could already picture courtroom, the judge, the final ruling, the end of what used to be. Just after the call ended, there was a soft knock at the study door. Mara Gold-Sauer, his newly promoted executive assistant, stepped inside with her usual calm presence. Mr. Voss, I've finalized your schedule for today. There's an urgent board meeting in 45 minutes, she said, setting a tablet on his desk with a soft thud. Cashin's eyes shifted from the screen to Marigold's concerned face. Thank you, Marigold. Prioritize all my calls today and get every document related to our joint finances organized. There's no room for mistakes. She nodded, her expression a mix of professionalism and quiet empathy. Understood, Mr. Voss. I've already started pulling the records from the past 2 years. Everything will be ready before your meeting. As she left, Cashin's mind drifted between cold logic and painful memories. Shared breakfasts, whispered promises, moment of laughter that now felt like distant echoes. But each memory only strengthened his resolve. He turned his attention back to the neat folder on his desk, reviewing every number as if each was a piece of evidence in a courtroom battle. Marigold returned shortly with a fresh cup of coffee and a short update. Sir, I've verified the bank transfers. All funds are now in your individual account. I've flagged everything for quick access. Cashin gave a small nod of approval. Excellent work, Marigold. Make sure the new locks are activated immediately. If Isadora even comes near this house again, I want no surprises. Their exchange was short and to the point, yet under the surface, tension simmered, born of betrayal, loss, and the need for control. Cashin felt grim satisfaction in how precisely his plans were falling into place. Even though his heart still beat with sadness and anger, his mind was locked on the path ahead. With Quentin's voice still in his ear and Marigold's thorough updates reassuring him, Cashin braced himself for the legal fight to come, a battle that would not only end his marriage but rebuild the man he had once been, step by calculated step. Later that afternoon, the tension in Cashin's carefully ordered world finally broke. He returned home after a long day at the office. Dust clung to the air, thick and heavy. The low hum of streetlights added to the weight of the moment. Inside the grand foyer, silence reigned, until it was shattered by a loud crash from the living room. Cashin rushed toward the sound, his pulse racing. In the sleek, modern space, shattered glass and broken pieces were scattered across the floor, a chaotic mess breaking through his carefully kept order. He had so painstakingly maintained control, yet now the security cameras recorded every chaotic moment. In the middle of the destruction stood Isadora, her eyes wild with a mix of fury and despair. She was visibly shaken, her movement erratic as she rifled through drawers and knocked over carefully arranged items. The room bore the scars of her anger: broken lamps, scattered personal belongings, a shattered vase that once held fresh flowers. Cashin's voice was cold, like steel, as he stepped into the room. Isadora, stop, he commanded, his tone unyielding. There's no need for this. Her voice trembled with bitter defiance. I won't let you erase me. I'm taking back what's mine. Her words were punctuated by another vase crashing to the floor. For a moment they locked eyes, hers burning with raw emotion, his full of restrained contempt and grim determination. Cashin took it all in, her trembling hands, the mess of their former life reduced to debris. I'm not interested in possessions, he said calmly, his tone flat and cutting through the chaos. What I want is control over this situation and over my future. And you're not part of that anymore. Isadora's face twisted with shock and wounded pride. You think you can just lock me out? That new locks and legal papers erase everything. Cashin's expression hardened. I'm doing exactly what's necessary. The locks are already changed. I won't allow any more surprises. Then, his voice dropped into a dangerously calm whisper. Every action you take now only strengthens my case. In the background, the quiet hum of the security system served as a steady reminder. Every outburst, every shattered item was being recorded, a digital record of her breakdown. Cashin picked up his phone and calmly dialed Quentin. His voice was steady as he explained the situation. The footage would become critical in court, documenting her violation of the restraining order. Later, when the police arrived, they took detailed statements and photographed the damage. Cashin stood quietly, watching it all with an unreadable expression. Equal parts satisfaction and melancholy. Every broken object, every thrown item was evidence, not just of Isadora's rage, but of her dissent. To Cashin, it justified every action he had taken. As the officers led Isadora away for questioning, she shot him one last defiant look over her shoulder. "You've lost," she hissed, her voice echoing in the now silent room. Cashin replied with chilling calm, "I'm simply reclaiming what was always mine." That moment, charged with raw emotion and icy calculation, was a turning point. Her outburst, immortalized on camera, would now become the foundation of Cashin's legal strategy, a strategy designed not just to sever ties, but to carve out a future on his own terms. In the days that followed, the legal and emotional storm reached its peak. Cashin's strategy had worked. Isadora's breakdown became irrefutable evidence in court. After reviewing the footage and police reports, the judge issued a permanent restraining order and required Isadora to pay for the damage she caused. At a sterile courthouse in downtown Chicago, Cashin sat across from her during a short hearing. The tension in the room was thick as the judge laid out the terms. Full compensation for destroyed property, dry cleaning expenses for Cashin's ruined belongings, and a mandate to stay away until the divorce was finalized. Cashin's eyes remained cold, but a faint spark of grim satisfaction flickered behind them. After the hearing, Quentin met him in the hallway. "You've done it," he said quietly. "Legally, you're untouchable. Everything is in your favor." Cashin only nodded, already thinking ahead. "Thank you, Quentin. This wasn't just about court. I need to make sure my life moves forward, completely free of her chaos." Later that week, Cashin returned to his home, now a fortress behind newly installed locks. Marigold greeted him at the door. "Mr. Voss, someone's here to see you. A gentleman. He's waiting in the foyer." Cashin hesitated, then stepped into the dim entrance hall. A well-dressed man stood waiting. His posture was casual, but his eyes carried a weight of regret. "Cashin," the stranger began, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." The man introduced himself as Silas Mercer, a former confidant of Isadora, and, as Cashin would soon learn, her secret paramour, a relationship long concealed beneath layers of deceit. "I'm here because I have something for you." Silas reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a crisp envelope. Inside is a cashier's check. "Consider it your share of the winnings, your half of the fortune you never had to split." Cashin's brow arched as he took the envelope, his pulse quickening. "What do you mean, half the winnings?" he asked, his voice low and cautious. Silas explained. Isadora's arrangements with me ended in a bitter fallout. Amid the chaos, I held on to a lottery ticket she once prized, a ticket that turned out to be a jackpot. I kept it all this time, and now I think it's only fair you get a portion of that. After all, you bear the cost of her betrayals." A surge of conflicting emotions coursed through Cashin, disbelief, amusement, and a hardened sense of vindication. As he opened the envelope, inside, the check revealed a substantial sum that validated his painstaking maneuvers. He couldn't help but let a slow, bitter smile creep across his face. "You've done well, Silas," Cashin said, his tone measured. "It seems even the universe has a way of paying me back." Silas's eyes softened with an apologetic glimmer. "I never intended for you to be collateral damage in this twisted affair. I just hope this can, in some small way, set things right." Returning to his sleek office that afternoon, Cashin felt the weight of the past dissipating, replaced by a resolve to rebuild his life. The final divorce was eventually finalized, a standard no-fault split that, despite the chaos, left him in control of his finances and future. With Isadora legally out of his life, he refinanced his home, ensuring every asset was safeguarded under his name alone. Marigold's steady presence continued to be a comforting reminder that amidst the bitter fallout, there was a new beginning on the horizon. Their occasional conversations held a subtle promise of something more than mere professional collaboration. The future, while scarred by betrayal, now shimmered with the promise of renewal and possibility. And so, as Cashin sat back in his study one crisp evening, the check from Silas resting beside his meticulously organized documents, he allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. He had weathered the storm with icy precision, transforming heartbreak into a weapon. In doing so, he reclaimed not just his wealth, but the very essence of who he was. The scars of betrayal would remain, but they were now mere markers of a past that had taught him the true value of control, vengeance, and ultimately, freedom. After securing his front door and glancing back at the utterly vanquished betrayers, Cashin allowed himself a small, knowing smile. "Enjoy your weekend in Los Angeles," he murmured, his voice dripping with finality. "It's supposed to be stunning, no matter what." And with that, we've reached the end of today's tale.